Death Watch for the Amazon. A visual kept beside a dead or dying person. Death Watch. Brazil has the power to save Earth's greatest rainforest, or destroy it. Although its crater is the sparsely wooded savanna, humankind has long looked to forest for food, fuel, timber, and sublime inspiration. Still, a livelihood for 1.5 billion people, forests maintain local and regional ecosystems, and for the other 6.2 billion, provide a fragile and creaking buffer against climate change. Now, droughts, wildfires, and other human induced changes are compounding that damage from chainsaws. In the tropics, which contain half of the world's forest biomass, tree cover loss has accelerated by two-thirds since 2015. If it were a country, the shrinkage would make the tropical rainforest the world's third biggest carbon dioxide emitter after China and America. Nowhere are the stakes higher than in the Amazon basin, and not just because it contains 40% of Earth's rainforest and harbors 10 to 15% of the world's terrestrial species. South America's natural wonder may be perilously close to the tipping point, beyond which its gradual transformation into something closer to steppe cannot be stopped or reversed, even if people lay down their axes. Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, is hastening the process in the name of development. The ecological collapse his policy may precipitate would be felt more acutely within his country's borders, which encircle 80% of the basin, but would go far beyond them too. It must be averted. Humans have been chipping away at the Amazon rainforest since they settled there well over 10 millennia ago. Since the 1970s, they have done so on an industrial scale. In the past 50 years, Brazil has relinquished the 17% of the forest's original extent, more than the area of France, to road and dam building, logging, mining, soya bean farming, and cattle ranching. After a 7-year government effort to slow the destruction, it picked up in 2013 because of weakened enforcement and an amnesty for past deforestation. Recession and political crisis further pared back the government's ability to enforce the rules. Now Mr. Bolsonaro has gleefully taken a buzz-saw to them. Although Congress and the courts have blocked some of his efforts to strip parts of the Amazon of its protected status, it has made it clear that rule breakers have nothing to fear, despite the fact that he was elected to restore law and order. Because 70 to 80% of logging in the Amazon is illegal, the destruction has soared to record levels. Since he took office in January, trees have been disappearing at a rate of over 2 Manhattans a week. The Amazon is unusual in that it recycles much of its water. As the forest shrivels, lesser recycling takes place. At a certain threshold, that causes more of the forest to wither, so that over a matter of decades, the process feeds on itself. Climate change is bringing the threshold closer every year as the forest heats up. Mr. Bolsonaro is pushing it towards the edge. Pessimists fear that the cycle of runaway degradation may kick in when another 3 to 8% of the forest vanishes, which under Mr. Bolsonaro could happen soon. There are hints that pessimists may be correct. In the past 15 years, the Amazon has suffered 3 severe droughts, fires on the rise. Brazil's president dismisses such findings as he does science more broadly. He accuses outsiders of hypocrisy. Did rich countries not fail their own forest? And sometimes of using environmental dogma as a pretext to keep Brazil warm. Keep Brazil poor. The Amazon is ours, the president thundered recently. What happens in the Brazilian Amazon, he thinks, is Brazil's business. Except it isn't. A dieback would directly hurt the 7 other countries with which Brazil shares the river basin. It will reduce the moisture channel along the Andes as far south as Buenos Aires. If Brazil were damming a real river, not choking off an area one, downstream nations would consider it an act of war. As the vast Amazon store of carbon burned and rotted, the world could heat up by as much as zero point 0.1 degrees Celsius by 2,100. Not a lot, you may think, but the preferred target of the Paris Climate Agreement allows further warming of only zero point 0.5 degrees Celsius or so. Mr. Bolsonaro's other arguments are also flawed, yet the rich world has raised its forest. Brazil should not copy its mistake, but learn from them instead, as say France has, by reforesting while it still can. Paranoia about Western scheming is just that. The knowledge economy values the genetic information sequestered in the forest more highly than land and dead trees. Even if it did not, deforestation is not a necessary price of development. Brazil's output of soybeans and beef rose between 2004 and 2012 when forest clearing slowed by 80%. In fact, aside from the Amazon itself, Brazilian agriculture may be deforestation's biggest victim. The drought of 2015 caused major farmers in the central Brazilian state of Mato to lose a third of their harvest. For all these reasons, the world ought to make clear to Mr. Bolsonaro that it will not tolerate his vandalism. Food companies pressed by consumers should spurn soybeans and beef produced on illegally logged Amazonian land, and they did in the mid 2000s. Brazil's trading partners should make deals contingent upon its good behavior. The agreement reached in June by the EU and Mercosur, a South American trading bloc, of which Brazil is the biggest member, already includes provisions to protect the rainforest. It is overwhelmingly in the party's interest to reinforce them. So too for China, which is anxious about global warming and needs Brazilian government to feed its lifestyle. Which signatories of the Paris Agreement, who pledged to pay developing ones to plant carbon-consuming trees, ought to do so. Deforestation accounts for 80% of global greenhouse gas emissions, but attracts only 3% of the aid earmarked for combating climate change. If there is a green shoot in Mr. Bolsonaro's scorched earth tactics towards the rainforest, it is that they have made the Amazon's plight harder to ignore. And not just for outsiders. Brazil's agriculture minister urged Mr. Bolsonaro to stay in the Paris Agreement. Unchecked deforestation could end up hurting Brazilian farmers if it leads to foreign boycotts of Brazilian farm goods. Ordinary Brazilians should press their president to reverse course. They have been blessed with a unique planetary patrimony whose value is intrinsic and life-sustaining as much as it is commercial. Letting it perish would be a needless catastrophe.